Are you a leader who's feeling overwhelmed and living in chaos? Then today's guest is here to help. She went from being a 15-year-old line cook to managing partner by 30, and now helping restaurant owners scale multi-unit businesses without losing their minds or their culture. She is not just here to talk about growth. She is here to talk about what happens when you become the bottleneck of your operation and how to set it free. She is the founder of Columbine Hospitality, creator of the Independent Restaurant Framework, and host of the Restaurant Leadership Podcast. Oh, and by the way, she's also the author of Multi Unit Mastery. Kristin Marvin, welcome to the Yes Show. Welcome to the Yes Show. I'm your host, Christine Trippy. Each week, we'll explore the life-changing power of saying yes, along with hotel leadership made easy. Get ready for inspiration, fun, and sweet hospitality. Let's go. So, Kristin, welcome. Your yes was realizing that you were the bottleneck in your workplace. Now, that's a punch in the gut moment, yes?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
So, what did that look like? Tell us, take us back. Tell us in real life, what did that feel like, look like, and how did you come to admit it?
I think there was a lot of internal struggle for me. I started my first company 3 years ago, and I had a very clear vision of what I wanted, how I wanted to grow it, where I wanted to spend my time and my energy. But sometimes you just don't know what that is actually going to look like and feel like until you're in it. And so, the end of my third year, I was feeling this constant push and pull of, I know there's more opportunity here. I know there's more demand. I know I can do more. I can do things better. I can enhance the quality, but I don't have the energy to do it. And that left me at a turning point of saying, I'm either going to have to really increase my rates, which I didn't want to necessarily have to do, or I'm going to have to take on more clients. And I didn't have the bandwidth, and I wanted to really protect the energy that I was providing to every single one of our clients, because retention is so much more important than just growth for us,
Mhm.
right? We want to make a long-term impact here for multi-unit restaurant owners that are scaling their business for years and years and years to come. This is about relationships and connection and people, right?
It all is.
Yeah. So, and I've worked for the big giant gorilla that wanted to grow rapidly fast and then turn, for profit. We didn't want to be that. So I knew that for a little bit. I think it sat with me for about 6 months or so. And then I was filed for divorce. I was picking up and moving back to Denver. There was a lot of things happening in my life. And my best friend that I've opened many, many restaurants with, and I reconnected it. We've always been friends, but we had coffee in Denver, and he said, "Look, I'm looking for my next opportunity." And I thought, man, this is it. This is the universe knocking on my door, going, "This business partner is right in front of you." And I said, "Let's talk about this." I said, "I am the bottleneck of my business. I know I've taken it to a wonderful point, and I can either stop here and be content with that for the rest, my remaining 17 years or 25 years or whatever that's going to look
Mhm.
like, or we can do something different." And so we had a couple conversations. We really put a vision together that we both really aligned with and felt really great about, and decided to make that leap. So I launched a brand new company with him in January, and we did a full rebrand. And, on top of everything else in life, it was like, okay, this is a year of evolution and transition. Let's just do it all. And we started the brand new company, ended the old company. And now we're hiring a team of people to help us grow this thing. So it's
That
pretty
is
awesome.
incredible. I love that.
Thank
And
you.
I love that you had to feel the pain
Yeah.
to realize that you're being the bottleneck. I can't say that I haven't felt these things in my 6 year journey of being an entrepreneur. So I totally get it. But let's take everybody back for a moment. As I mentioned in the introduction, you started at 15 years old as a line cook,
Mhm.
and by the time you were 30, you were a managing partner. So tell us a little bit about your beginning, and maybe for those listening who are in the operation right now, most of my listeners are hoteliers. You really come from that restaurant hospitality world. Um, when can they identify that they're the bottleneck in what they're doing? Any
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
I think I'll address the bottleneck issue first. I think if you start to create some space for yourself and look at the vision that you've got for your company and realize and have a really honest conversation with yourself of, am I the person that's going to be able to take this thing to the next level? Or are there going to be skill sets that are needed that I don't have, that I don't necessarily have the desire to want to learn or the time to learn, that's going to match the trajectory of my business? I think it's about being really, really honest with yourself. And that
I,
is not easy to do.
I 100% agree. I think two of the most, like just even asking that question, I was thinking about it in my head. And two of the biggest things that pop up for me are our bottleneck is failure to delegate and failure to say, I don't know about this part of the business
Yeah.
and ask for help.
100%.
Seek someone who does. And
100%.
I think for me, I'm sure I've seen many examples of that before this. And I'd love to know who's someone who made you see that that's okay to not know everything. I remember when my area director, when I was the GM, I asked him, like, I really need help with something. And he said, Christine, I don't know anybody. I don't know anything about that. He says, but I know this person is really good at it. I'm going to help you get the resources you need. That was like the first moment where I was like, it's okay to not know it all, as long
Yeah.
as you are okay with pulling in the resources of who you need. So that was a aha moment for me. And I'll just say his name, Tim Connedy, one of the best leaders I've ever had. Can you think of someone who demonstrated that for you? Maybe what the example was?
Yeah, I mean, going back early in my career, one of my first, one of the most inspirational, pivotal moments for me was actually working in a hotel for 5 years. I worked at the
Oh,
Broadmoor. Yeah, so I'll
which
speak.
hotel?
The Broadmoor Hotel in Colorado Springs. It's
Oh,
a
nice.
magical 700 room, 5-star, five diamond resort.
What did you do?
I started there as a cocktail server and then worked my way up to a manager.
Love that.
I was there for 5 years. I put myself through college while working there. And then when I graduated from college, I was looking for jobs and I was like, you know what? I'm absolutely in love with what I'm doing. I was studying wine. I was working with master mixologists out of New York. I was working for a wonderful mentor that worked for Danny Meyer. I mean, I was learning and
Oh,
growing
nice.
in my mid 20s, every single shift. It was absolutely incredible. But one of the wonderful things that I learned about working for a property like that was we never said no. We always found a way to say yes to the guest. No, you love that.
Yes.
And and look for opportunities to make things better. And one of the phrases that I learned from, I don't remember exactly who it was at the hotel, but might have been through the management training program or one of the managers I worked with, was learning how to say, I don't know, but I will find out.
Yes, yes.
There's two very different ways that conversation can go, right? You can say, I don't know, and it's dead in the water. But when you say, I find out, it opens you up to curiosity. And it's something that I've just trained so many employees and managers, hourly employees to say over the years. Don't just leave it dead in the water, but say, I will find out, because it's not only helping you deliver an amazing experience for the guests, but you're also teaching yourself how to be curious, how to find opportunity, how to continue to learn and grow. And so I've taken that mindset with me through business. And so again, like you just said, it's about understanding, do I want to be the person that's going to go figure that thing out that I don't know? Or do I need to find somebody? Do I need to delegate or do I need to ask for help?
Absolutely. And in my world, and yes is the answer world, that would sound more like this. The first step is to make friends first. So be like, oh, that is a great question. And if you really don't know an answer or can't think of a next can do, it would be, may I get 10 minutes and I'll be right back. I'm going to find some solutions for you. So
Yeah.
again, we're not telling them, I don't know. We're not telling them, I'm sorry, unfortunately, but we could do this. I love it. It's starting with that whole yes persona. And you as a team member, once you have the skill, once you understand everything is possible, there's always an next yes, then you feel empowered that you're not stuck in this organization that here's the rules and that's all you got,
Yeah.
and then you have to shrink in your confidence. So I love this experience that you had with yes. I know my yes story comes from hearing the story about yes is the answer, what is the question, thinking that was amazing, going back to my hotel, giving them the motto and expecting everyone to all of a sudden say yes without first teaching them how to say yes.
Yeah.
You have to teach people how. So I love that. That's so great.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So I know you've been really open about burnout and about alcohol, using
Mhm.
alcohol to cope. So what was the moment that you realized that this isn't working anymore?
Yeah, I think, my whole world, my whole environment was kind of wrapped around alcohol. That I was married to somebody who sold wine and spirits for a
Okay.
distributor into restaurants, and I was in the restaurant world where alcohol is very, very accessible. Right.
Hmm.
I was also, like I mentioned earlier, I was studying mixology. I was in bars. I took the Bar Smarts course. I loved classic cocktails. I loved learning the history, the stories behind them, telling that to guests and staff. I
Hmm.
also was studying to become a sommelier, in addition to
Hmm.
my partner at the time. And so there was a lot of education wrapped up around alcohol and appreciation for it. And but it was a big hobby for both of us. We'd get off work and we would go sit at a bar somewhere, whether it was a restaurant that we loved, a new restaurant opening, one of the wine accounts that he had. So it was our primary hobby. And so there was a lot of habit built up into that. And that was okay for a long time until
It wasn't.
until it wasn't.
Right.
Yeah.
I
I
get, and
think,
you know what? You're not alone,
yeah,
especially in our industry, food and beverage, hotels, hospitality in general. This is not a one-off story.
right. 100%. And
Mhm.
I am very much a hyperachiever. I'm an only child. I'm very driven. I wanted to be a GM by 24. I did that. I wanted to be a managing partner by 30. I did that. And I was always reaching for kind of what's next. I was very much in what Dan Sullivan calls the gap, always looking for and shooting for the next thing instead of taking time to appreciate and recognize where I was in the moment. And I'd opened 13 restaurants, and then I jumped on with a group that scaled very rapidly. We went from 6 to 48 locations in 7 years. And
Wow.
I'd never wanted to be in the big corporate environment. I was very much in line with the independent space and the creativity and the empowerment and the autonomy that came with that. And what I realized in the last 3 years of working with that specific company was things had shifted so much where in the independent space, I was able to identify the problems and solve the problems and create all the systems, which is something I really love doing and we do with clients today. But when you're growing that rapidly and you have all these new departments coming in with all these expertise and specialties, that empowerment, that creativity can get lost. And so I was slowly losing my voice over the years and I didn't realize it. I had stopped investing in myself from a leadership perspective and I'd started to put all that onus on the company that I was working for. And when I stopped investing in myself, I became very, very, very unhappy. And I
Mhm.
started to blame others, and this victim mentality started to come out for myself. And instead of getting some support from a coach or a therapist around that, I started to drink more heavily to cover up this pain and this unhappiness and the sadness.
Mhm.
And the minute that I stopped doing that and started reinvesting in myself, my whole world changed.
That's great. A lot of what you're talking about is self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go back really quickly to the bottleneck piece and this self-awareness piece. What are those signs that a leader can recognize they're in the bottleneck or they need more self-awareness,
Yeah.
but they don't know it yet? Are there any signs you would say, one, two, three, look for this? And if you can say yes, you might be in the bottleneck. You might be needing some more awareness.
Yeah, I would say the first one is constant frustration. Like I mentioned earlier, kind of being
Yeah.
in this gap of like nothing's ever good enough, the team's not performing well enough, we're not hitting our sales numbers. I need to be working harder. Like that constant frustration with yourself and your team should be a really big trigger that like something is out of balance here and
Yeah.
we need to take a moment and stop and think
What
about
is it?
what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
The second, they all kind of course, bleed into each other, right? But the second piece of that is not taking enough time to do just what I talked about, not taking enough time to sit down and strategize, talk to your team, invest in your team, and ask some really hard questions about what's working right now and what's not working.
Hmm.
When we go a million miles an hour, we don't understand what the major challenges are in the business, and it can really take you in a very difficult direction and a dangerous one. And we know that so well in this business, right, where it's really hard for us to slow down and create space for
Yes.
ourselves.
And what that creates is where every single day is Groundhog Day, you're coming in to react to all the
Yes.
crap that happens
Yeah.
instead of being proactive, knowing exactly what you're going to do and be ahead of things and feel less frustrated. But
Yeah.
yeah, when you're in reaction only mode, your life, you don't like your job very much.
100%. And I would say the third is when you start to notice that that mindset is really starting to impact your quality of life. If you can't sleep, if you're not eating well, you're not taking care of yourself, you've let your workout routine completely fall to the wayside, and you're starting to think, I've just got to push harder and do more. That's a really, really big sign that something, again, is out of alignment and it needs to be really looked at carefully in your business.
Three really great signs. What are those three things again? Because that was really good.
Yeah. So the first one is when you're really, really frustrated with yourself and you feel like you could never achieve your goals. The second one is when you are
Reactionary mode.
totally in reactionary mode in your business. And the third one is when your quality of life starts to take a toll.
Perfect. If you can say yes to any of those, you might want to do a little deep dive,
Yeah.
create some awareness, and are you the bottleneck? I
Yeah.
love that. That was so crystal clear for everyone to take away. I love that. Now, also, I wanted to ask you what you just mentioned. Is that the Gap in the Gain, the book that you
Yes.
just mentioned? Yeah,
Yeah.
great book. Yes.
Huge. Yeah, we talk about that a lot with clients because we find that a lot of clients are in the gap a lot with their teams. And I was very much like this too, constantly striving to be better, 1% better every single day, always wanting to improve, looking for opportunities every single shift that I could coach on, we could focus on and get better every single day. And I was constantly looking at my team and my leadership going, why aren't you there yet? Why aren't you to this level yet? And so we find that a lot of our clients are in that too. So we talk about the gap and the gain a lot.
Love that. Gap in the Gain's great book. I'll put the book in the show notes too, along with your book. And
Great
as a matter of
resource.
fact, speaking of that, in Multi-Unit Mastery, your book, you focus on helping leaders move from chaos to confidence.
Yeah.
What is one habit or system framework that separates chaotic operators to confident CEOs?
The number one most important thing is having a very clear vision for your company, a 5 year, 3 year, 1 year vision that is not in someone's head, clearly
Right.
written down,
Yeah.
very specific around financial targets, operational challenges, and where you want to go operationally, how many team members you need, what team members you need, knowing exactly what those roles and expectations are, and making sure that that vision is not something that you just write down and set to the side for the rest of the year. You're checking in on it quarterly. Your entire leadership team and your hourly team know what that vision is so that everyone is focused and moving in the same direction. It's amazing when you have leaders and hourlies that are constantly full of questions and creativity and ideas, but it can be very draining for them and for you if those ideas do not align with the vision. So give them a roadmap to be able to follow, give your leadership team a roadmap to follow, give yourself something to hold yourself accountable to, because as you become more and more of a leader, we are more and more visionary, and 99 out of our 100 ideas are crap. So we've got to keep those shiny objects at a
Reined in.
minimum, 100%. And
Yes.
that very clear vision really helps you do that. That's the foundation of everything that we start with when we start working with clients.
I love that. And one thing that I can add to that is thinking about that clear vision. You might not be, the listener out here might not be running a company and thinking about, I need to create this vision. You can be running the vision for your team. What is the goal just for your team? Even if you're running the front desk, what you can create, like it's your own company. What is your vision for our team? And what I would also recommend is that's how you begin every leadership meeting. So I know many of our general managers out there, every week you have your leadership meeting. And I never did this, actually, even on property. I always had an agenda until I went above property with my previous company. And my boss led every meeting with what we get scored on at the end of the year in our performance evaluation. And that's how he led every meeting, starting there. And it kept us extremely dialed in and focused. So I really love that to help you maintain that focus. And again, just because it's not your company doesn't mean you can't create a vision for your team.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
can have a vision for your team in any aspect. It should align with the overall company vision, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you can have
Right.
you can create a vision for every single aspect of your life, for your nutrition, for
Mm-hmm.
your health goals, to your community, your relationships. I mean, the visions are super powerful.
Yes, super powerful. And again, just to reiterate that if you're wondering what that would be, you want to know what are you being held accountable to? What is your expectation of you from the company? And those are the goals you want to be talking about each week because oftentimes we get derailed with the idea fairy on fun, exciting projects and whatnot, but that's not going to impact the goal that I'm going to be judged on.
Exactly
So
right.
you want to keep focused on what those things are that you are being held accountable to. Really great message about that vision. Now, you talk about building the right leadership team, not just promoting loyal people. I love this because in our industry, this happens every day because you're good at your job. We're going to make you the manager.
Yeah.
So, in your book, you challenge leaders to stop building teams based on comfort. How do you actually make that shift? Actually, make
Yeah.
that shift without
Yeah.
blowing up the culture. I've been
It's
doing this for 10 years. I deserve that promotion.
it takes time, and it takes a lot of thought and a lot of intention. So we work specifically with groups. Again, once we've got that vision aligned of, okay, here's where they want to go in the next 3 to 5 years, we put an organizational chart behind it. Okay, let's look at the leadership that the group actually has right now. Let's talk about what's working and what's not, or where there's crossover that doesn't need to be crossover and
Mm-hmm.
causes confusion and chaos. Or let's talk about where the gaps are. And then once we identify that, then that gives us a clear understanding to go, okay, what does the leadership team need to look like in the future? What roles does the business actually need?
Mm-hmm.
Not just what does the owner, again, who do I have around me that's willing to say yes? This may be a time when yes isn't good, right? One of the very, very rare ones.
Yeah.
But we get really clear on exactly what the business needs and what the model can handle. Because when you promote from loyalty and you get yourself so top heavy where you've got a bunch of leaders that are on salary that are doing jobs that they have just kind of come up with, it doesn't help the business be efficient. It doesn't help the bottom line. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a fine balance there of making sure that you know what the business needs first. Then you go back and look at your current leadership team and go, okay, who needs to be developed to these new positions? Or do we need to have some tough conversations?
Mm-hmm.
And we typically find that when there's change that needs to happen in terms of having some tough conversations with people, that 9 times out of 10, those people are relieved that they are going to be put into a different role.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily that they're going to be fired unless they are having some
Right.
performance issues, right? But it's that they're just not in the right role, and
Right.
they feel that and they know that, and so that can take 2 to 3 years. This is not like design the organizational chart one day, go in and and light your team up the next day.
Mm-hmm.
It's careful and thoughtful and intentional, and it takes a long time to start to make that shift because you do want to protect the culture. You want to be honest with people about how they're performing, but then you also have to, again, be really honest with yourself about what the business needs, because if you're going to continue to hang on to those people, that's creating another bottleneck in your business.
It is. I think this is important to note because, again, we say this all the time about just promoting people, but how do you change it? You want to build the people that are coming up in the industry. You want to build them. I think here is the biggest ticket here. A lot of those people can become that leader, but when we just give them the position and say, "Okay, now go do it," then that's when they crash and burn. And so, knowing if you're a leader saying, "I'm going to give this person a chance. I know they're going to be green," that's going to require more from me. That's a commitment you have to make as a leader. If you're going to build somebody up, this is their first, they're good at their job. So we want to give them the opportunity to lead. But that doesn't mean that they're going to know how to lead. You've got to be committed to spend the time to teach them what leadership is. And
Exactly.
that I think is the biggest breakdown. And then again, 2 years from now, or a year or 6 months from now, we can maybe see that's not where their talent lies.
Yeah.
Let's put them back where their talent lies. But I think one of the biggest mistakes we make in food and beverage and in hotels is that we give the position and don't teach anything about leadership.
Yeah, it's and it's easy and it's comfortable to do that, right?
Mhm.
Because we focus so much on the technical side of the job. Here's how you write a schedule. Here's how you open the restaurant or the hotel, right? Here's the opening shift checklist. Here's the closing. But again, we do a lot of leadership workshops. I know you do too. When you sit down and ask a 22-year-old or a 25-year-old, what kind of leader do you want to be? They're like, I have no idea what that means. I say,
Right.
give me leadership characteristics. They're like, I don't even know.
Right.
So leadership, I understand why leadership development is so challenging for our industry, because it does seem to be this major daunting thing that is really, really hard to teach, but it's about really distilling down again exactly what your business needs. What are the core values of your business? Finding people on your team that align with those. And then you can start to coach to those. And that's how you develop and create leaders.
Yeah. And I was just having a conversation with John Haney, and we were talking about how leadership is human, management is process.
Mm.
And I think that's a good way to just tee it up for someone to see it in their head.
Yeah.
And you can want to be that leader that does one-on-one coaching, that has those one-on-ones. That's a great leader because I'm being with my humans, right?
Yeah.
And then the process, the management of that is you're going to have a regular one-on-one. I'm going to systematize my leadership.
Yeah.
And I think when you can take your leadership and systematize it, that's when you blend those two things together beautifully. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I love asking, restaurant owners or anyone in the food and beverage space, how they want to show up as a leader, who they want to be as a leader, because that question really kind of takes them back for a second. And they start thinking about, how do I actually want to show up?
Right.
That's
Right.
leadership. That's leadership, right? They want to be a strong communicator. They want to delegate. They want to hold people accountable. They want to have empathy. They want to lead by example. There's all these wonderful things that can just come out of answering that question for yourself.
Yeah. So you talk about supportive, tough love. I love this. Where do leaders get it wrong? What's your recommendation, your guideline?
I think often enough, it's so funny when you think about the industry, and you would probably say in the back of the house it's too hard, and in the front of the house it's too soft. I think there is a delicate balance, but I find what people struggle with the most in all levels of leadership is not feeling comfortable being honest enough with people, and they are not confident and comfortable with that because they haven't practiced it, or because they don't think about what they want the end result of that conversation to be, or what they want the relationship to look like on the other end of that conversation. But they also just haven't had good examples laid out for them of people being honest with them in a workplace environment of what they're doing really well and what they're not doing well. And so it's a challenge. We know, right? You know very well that when we start to get uncomfortable, that's where growth happens as a leader. And I think that we are all people pleasers or recovering people pleasers in this industry. And we think that when we have to have those tough conversations, or when we get to have those tough conversations with people, that it's going to impact the relationship in a negative way. But what it actually does is bring people closer together, because it opens up communication and it builds trust. And that is the foundation for a successful partnership.
If anybody out there doesn't believe that, I want you to think of somebody right now in your past. Could be a teacher, could be a family member, could be a previous leader, boss that you had. And I want you to think of someone that you are in the role you are in today because they shared maybe some hard feedback and you were able to get better, be aware of it, and grow from it. And if you can think of that person, that is because they gave you that feedback. And you want to be thought of when someone's asked them, your team members years later, that question, you want to be thought of that. You know what? My boss had the courage to let me be aware of that. If I am a hotel GM, restaurant owner, working at a restaurant, a leader listening right now, feeling overwhelmed, what are the next first 3 moves that they should make this week to get out of the chaos?
One thing, I don't even know if it has to be 3. I'll narrow it. I'll simplify it down to 1 here.
Love it.
Do an energy audit for yourself. Take 10 minutes or 15 minutes and do this exercise. Grab a piece of paper and a pen. On the left-hand side of your paper, write what's giving you energy. And on the right-hand side of your paper, list what's draining you of energy. Make those lists and look at those energy drainers and figure out what the top one or two things are that are draining your energy and figure out what you need to do with that. It could simply be a mindset shift. You may need to delegate something, or you may need to go back and get clear expectations from the person that you're working with or working for as to why that thing that you're doing is important, or some clarity around what you're actually supposed to be doing in that area.
I love that. Tell everybody, that's such a great exercise. Tell everybody again what the two columns to have.
Yeah, left-hand side, what's giving you energy, right-hand side, what's draining you of energy. I'll take this one step forward. Once you start to move the one or two things on that list that are draining you of energy, come back to this exercise every 90 days and continue to check in with yourself, build that self-awareness, but start to cross those things off your list that are draining you of energy. It could be something as small as you're holding on to something work-wise that you don't need to do. And that could be a development opportunity for somebody on your team that you can teach and coach and delegate to.
Yes.
So figure out where your zone of genius is in that. This exercise will help you with that. And then start to move the needle towards more energy giving activities. You may decide that you are not in the right role. You may not be with the right company, or you may realize that you don't have as many things that are draining your energy as you think that you do. And you just needed a quick shift in perspective by just looking at that list.
And I can tell you that I need to do this. I just had a call with another leader that does what I do, and that's what we do. And they posed a lot of questions that made me really think. And so just know that no matter how successful you are, we always need to be checking these things. We always need to be doing these things to just reassess and make sure we're focused on the right things at the right time. And so those are really sound pieces of advice, and it'll help us to create awareness and have agency to get out of the chaos.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, my friend, it is time for the one question. Are you ready for our question from our previous guest?
Yes.
Okay, this is so appropriate for everything we've talked about. What was the last failure that you had that propelled you forward?
This might be TMI, too personal, but I worked with my coach on it because I said I hadn't failed yet in business, or I hadn't had a big failure yet. And I know that you can't have success without failure. So I was looking for it. And he kind of, virtually slapped me in the face and said, Kristin, you just ended a 20-year marriage. You had failure there. I was like, oh, okay, there it is. But again, talking about energy draining and who you want to be in life and how you want to show up, you got to change your environment. Sometimes if you're not around, you're not around people that are helping you get to that next level. So it was a failure. It was a beautiful one. A lot of magic moments, but it really helped me move forward. So
to move forward, that was a perfect one. It gave me goosebumps. I'm really proud of you. That's the right thing. And all of that. So, cause that's a really hard decision to make. Even when it's the right one. So, so really good job. All right. What question do you have for our next guest?
Well, I'd love to keep with this theme because I think it's so powerful. So I would ask the next guest, what's the one thing that is draining them of energy, and what do they want to do to turn it around?
I love it. Perfect. Excellent. I would like to make sure everybody knows exactly who you serve. Tell everybody what you're doing right now.
We are working with multi-unit restaurant owners to help them scale their businesses and create businesses that run without them.
Very nice. That's very impressive. I love hearing your success and how you've taken it from a 15-year-old as a line cook and built this empire. I love it.
Thank you.
Very good. Where can people connect with you, get your book, learn more from you?
Yeah. So anybody that's listening to this conversation, couple things. Would love to give you a free copy of the book. You just need to go to irfbook.com to get that. That stands for Independent Restaurant Framework. And then anybody that's listening to would love to gift you a coaching session to help you figure out what's blocking you of energy or help you get one step closer to achieving your goals and success. So when you go to that book link, you can put in your name and then it'll take you to my personal calendar and book some time. I'd love to connect.
Perfect. And I'll put all of that in the show notes. Perfect. Kristin, is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd love our audience to know?
I don't think so. This was a great conversation. I think I appreciate it because there were moments in this conversation that I needed to hear today from a leadership
me
perspective.
Too. Me too.
So you never know. I love that I could listen to this episode 2 or 3 times over and always pull a different moment of insight out of it. And so I hope that, leaders that are listening to this remember that it's okay to repeat those things over and over and over again, because you're going to pull something different from no matter where you're at in your life. But appreciate your time. I love what you're doing for the industry too. And wonderful to be connected with you today.
You as well. Thank you so much, Kristin. We'll talk to you again.
Sounds good.
That's a wrap for today's show. Say yes to taking action and changing the world one yes at a time. And oh, my friend, will you say yes to review, like, and subscribe? The more yeses you give, the more juicy goodness I can bring to all of you wise pineapples. Cool or cool?